Good morning, students. This statement is from your building administrators concerning the growing violence against Asian Americans in the United States. On Friday, the flag outside our school stood at half-staff in honor of the victims of the tragic and premeditated killings in Georgia of 8 people, among them 6 Asian American women. Columbia High School is standing in solidarity with our Asian American students and community members. We must condemn not only this event, but as President Biden called it, an ongoing crisis of gender-based and anti-Asian violence that has long plagued our nation. The flag is still at half-staff today. As I walked by it this morning, it reminded me of what the flag is supposed to symbolize: hope, opportunity, and freedom. For my parents, Cuban immigrants in the 1960s, America was just that. Unfortunately, that has not been the case for all groups seeking sanctuary here. As Vice President Kamala Harris said recently as she toured Georgia with the president, racism is real in America, and it has always been. And this has been tragically too true for the Asian American community in America. We have read in our history classes how when the Chinese first came to California during the gold rush, they were attacked and lynched by those who wanted their mining rights. With nowhere to go and faced with violence and discrimination at worst and complete indifference at best, many Asian Americans sought work on the greatest infrastructure project of the 19th century, the Great Transcontinental Railroad. Yet although they completed incredible engineering feats, they were still mistreated by their superiors, given less pay than their white coworkers, and always assigned to the deadliest tasks. In the next century, Asian American and Pacific Islanders saw the same hatred and xenophobia persist. Japanese Americans were forced into internment camps based on Executive Order 9066. And make no mistakes, my students, xenophobia and prejudice did not end with the closing of the internment camps after World War II. In my history classes, I've had students ask why were Asian Americans mistreated so harshly by the government and its citizens. After all, it was the only ethnic group to ever face legislation from Congress, especially banning its immigration. Perhaps the answer lies in a story from historian Ronald Takaki. He was in a cab talking with the driver who asked the Hawaiian-born historian how long he's been in the country because his English was so good. Now, Takaki's grandfather moved to Hawaii in the 1870s, so his family was quote-unquote American for over a century. Yet for some reason, when he entered that cab, he didn't look American. Takaki, in his book, The Different Mirror, reminds us of how Toni Morrison explained that race has functioned always as a metaphor necessary to the construction of Americanness, in the creation of our national identity. American has always been defined as white. And so for centuries, Asian Americans have been, and unfortunately continue to be, targets because they have been and continue to be seen as different. And that is why we must stand together and do what we can to ensure that all of us can live our lives with respect, dignity, and safety. So what can we do, Colombians? President Biden said that Americans should take responsibility first for failing to express enough outrage about the targeting of people of Asian descent. Because our silence is complicity, he said. We cannot be complicit. We have to speak out and we have to act. So we ask you here, amplify the voices of Asian Americans on your social platforms. Do as President Biden said and call on Congress to swiftly pass the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act which would expedite the federal government's response to the rise of hate crimes exacerbated during the pandemic, support state and local governments to improve hate crimes reporting, and to ensure that hate crimes information is more accessible to Asian American communities. Students, we need to call out those who use stereotypes and who discriminate. Because at the end of the day, this flag will go back up and many will continue on with their lives. We must act and make sure to do something so we can help make a change so that our future is much different than our past. Thank you for listening, students. We appreciate your time.